Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
With tariffs and trade policy making headlines, it's time to ask, are your investments and financial plans prepared? Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, and this is the Statler Financial Radio Show. Today, I'm joined with Phillip Statler. He is the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. He's here with me to break down what these changes could mean for your retirement portfolio and ways that you can stay ahead. So, Phillip, let's dive right in here. There's a lot of buzz right now about new tariffs on imports from Mexico and the European policy of other countries. These kinds of changes can really shake up the market. So, Phillip, what should high net worth listeners be thinking about when it comes to keeping their retirement plans on track during times like this?
Well, I would say, and not just high net worth, but everybody needs to understand that tariffs, just in general, can cause market volatility. They can actually be the creator and the cause of it, but they also present some opportunities for those who really kind of plan strategically. So now, really, if you look at it, is the time to kind of look at your portfolio, make sure that you've made any adjustments that need to be made based on where we're at now in terms of expected volatility to come. You know, we've got some big things coming if they don't really work themselves out, which who knows, you know, you can always have the taco trade, right? That you know, Trump's going to give in before it's all said and done. But there's things we need to look at, you know, that he's imposed a 30% tariff on Mexico, the EU, and that starts August 1st if we don't have any success in trade negotiations. Now, I'm reading recently that, yeah, they're coming to the table, but I guess they're not coming to the table the way Trump wants them to yet, because there's really no agreement in place for that. And so you think about that, that's going to cause a lot of issues when it comes to earnings across the board as we kind of look at what's going to happen. And it's going to cause more inflation as well, because costs are going to go up, and it's going to put pressure on everybody when it comes to, you know, spending and what we're used to paying for things, Danielle.
That's right, Phillip. I know a lot of people have questions about this. So for those with more complex portfolios or, let's say, tax situations, what specific challenges or opportunities should they be aware of?
Well, I think that one thing is you look at certain sectors that are tied to global trade. They may experience more volatility than the rest of the market, which could impact your investments. So really, it boils down to looking at different sectors. It could be a big help in looking ahead. I know one of the portfolios that we've developed and started using really looks at, you know, rotating in and out of sectors depending upon what the risk looks like in those sectors. The other thing is adjusting your tax strategy. You know, now that we've got the big beautiful bill passed, that could impact folks, and they need to understand how that will benefit them. I know last week's show, we spent a lot of time on the big, beautiful bill and how that can help folks. But you know, it's one of those things that when we look at things, we need to look at tax strategies. Do we look at tax loss harvesting? What can we do to help reduce the tax burden overall, knowing that most likely, obviously nothing's guaranteed, but most likely taxes are going to have to go up at some point in time. Yeah, we've got a reprieve, it looks like, for the next so many years. But at some point, we're going to have to pay the piper. And are you prepared for that? Are you making the current adjustments you need to while you have an opportunity?
You know, Phillip, these are really great questions to consider. And so what are some proactive steps can our listeners take today to help protect their retirement savings in the future?
Well, I think one is to regularly review your portfolio to know if it's diversified and aligned with your goals. And I think the diversification is a big deal. Remember, there are two areas of diversification you need to look at. The first is, how much do we have safe and secure? And how much do we have at risk in the markets? That's your first level of diversification. And there, a lot of times we'll use the rule of 100 to determine what that needs to be and what that needs to look like. And then secondly is making sure that we align with our goals and make sure we've got our diversified portfolio for the risk portfolio well defined for what we need to do. And then work with a financial professional to help adjust your plans as needed to stay ahead of economic changes. It's not a plan that you set it and forget it. If you have an income plan or financial plan, those need to be looked at least once a year to make sure that you're on track and nothing needs to be adjusted looking forward. And, Danielle, this is the reason that I created the Core Retirement Design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. And to get started, we offer a free 30-minute phone call where we'll answer your questions about retirement to see if you're on the right track to your retirement. We'll answer questions, check to see if everything's in good shape. If it is, great. If not, hey, look, we'll offer some suggestions and see where you are, where we might be able to help you. To get started, like I said, it's a 30-minute phone call. Give us a call at 863-877-1188, 863-877-1188 for your 30-minute, no obligation phone call.
That's right. If you're listening to us today, if you have any questions, go ahead and give us a phone call, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, if you're just not joining us, we're discussing how global trade policies like tariffs could impact your retirement. Phillip, let's continue the conversation. What's the bigger picture here for our listeners who are nearing retirement?
Well, I think, Danielle, these changes really highlight the importance of having a flexible and forward-thinking financial plan. Like I said before the break, we can't just set it and forget it. It's something that we have to monitor and look at and make sure that we're on track for where we need to be. Tariffs and other economic shifts can affect everything from market performance to the cost of goods. So staying informed and proactive is really the key to being ahead and getting ahead. And then again, good planning can help preserve your wealth. And that's really the key here, Danielle, is in the ups and downs of this volatility, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, that folks that are in retirement or getting close to retirement have preserved their portfolio so that they can grab and gravitate towards the income they need off of that portfolio.
These are really good tips to keep in mind here. And I hope as you're listening to the show here that you are writing these things down, because you can't do retirement alone. So as we're continuing this conversation, Phillip, how should listeners approach their tax efficient strategies in light of these changes?
Well, I think now we've still got an extenuation of, the tax law. So we've got lower capital gains rates. We've got lower tax rates. So I would say that we need to look at several things, but one is take advantage of those low capital gains rates. If you're an investor, if you have an income portfolio that's driving dividends, you want to make sure those dividends are qualified dividends so that you're paying capital gains rates on those dividends, which for a lot of you out there, your capital gains rate is going to be zero for long-term capital gains. And so we want to make sure that we have as much as possible in that long-term capital gains bucket and not ordinary income or short-term capital gains. So that's one thing we need to look at. The other thing is just making sure that you've developed a tax-efficient strategy to help keep more of your retirement. And sometimes that means we need to look and take advantage of some of the low rates we have now and start looking at Roth conversions and making sure that we're paying tax now at the lowest rate possible so that us and our heirs, our children, don't have to pay more in taxes later. That's a strategy that's part of our core retirement design.
And we're going to talk about that core retirement design here shortly. But really quick, Phillip, before we go to break, for those who are ready to reevaluate their retirement strategy, what's your advice?
Well, don't wait for uncertainty to pass. Start planning now. Take advantage of what volatility may bring your way. And just, we're here to help you stay informed and make confident financial decisions for the future, because that's important. It's not stick your head in the sand. It's look around. What do I need to be doing? How do I need to take action? And what can I do to put myself in a better financial position? That's the start. And that's really, the reality. Economic changes like tariffs can feel unpredictable, but your retirement plan doesn't have to. Folks, with the right strategies, you can stay on track and enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for and that you've dreamed of year in and year out while you're working. Folks, we're here at Statler Financial to help you build a personalized plan to help protect and grow your savings, create a flexible income strategy to help give you confidence in any marketplace, and then address your concerns like market volatility and evolving tax laws with professional guidance. Folks, listen, if you save $250,000 or more, give us a call now at 863-877-1188 to schedule your no obligation 30-minute phone call to make sure you are on the right track to the retirement you always dreamed of. Because together, we'll create a plan to help you retire with clarity and confidence. Danielle, give us a call at 863-877-1188.
That's right. There's no cost. There's no obligation to speak with Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services. Again, 863-877-1188. Call right now, 863-877-1188. Stick around. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We're talking about common myths about retirement. There's a lot of information going around. We want to make sure you have the most accurate information. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly doesn't. With fears of a potential recession and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? Here in the Sebring area, financial advisor Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services have seen uncertainty come and go. Phillip can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 863-877-1188 now to meet with Phillip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. Call 863-877-1188 and schedule your visit today. 863-877-1188. Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Gone are the days when retirees could rely heavily on substantial external support, like Social Security and robust corporate pension plans. Today, not only are pensions a fading memory, but the reliability of Social Security and benefits is also increasingly uncertain, placing the burden of securing a financially stable retirement more firmly on individuals. So, Phillip, as a financial advisor, what do you feel are some of the greatest risks that threaten financial security during retirement?
Well, I think there's a handful that we see on a regular basis that are concerned to most everybody out there. Let's start with we're living a lot longer, right? So we've got this increase in life expectancy that so many more people are reaching that, age 100. So that's a big deal. Making sure that we don't outlive our money. And part of that is we're living so much longer that becomes a concern going into the planning process. And so I say that's one of the biggest ones is life expectancy and not make sure you don't outlive your money. The second one is market volatility. People are really concerned about the ups and downs of the market, the risk that's there. And that's why, we developed our core retirement design to help, offset some of those issues that people find when it comes to market volatility. And that can be a problem the closer you get to retirement. And then obviously we've had this issue, inflation, for the last couple of years. Inflation has really eaten away at people's savings, at the money they're getting. Expenses continue to rise. And not only inflation going up, but we know that at the end of 2025, going into 2026, that we are going to be seeing higher taxes unless Congress does something, which lately they haven't been able to do anything. So I don't think that that's going to change. I think we're going to automatically revert back to the old tax rules that we had prior to the Trump tax code changes. And so we know the taxes are going to go up. We need to plan for that, and we need to build a plan that helps offset some of those rising taxes. And lastly, rising healthcare costs. Healthcare costs have continually risen even higher than inflation. And so that's a big problem when it comes to retiring, because we know that as we retire, our healthcare costs are going to go up. I mean, it's just, the older we are, the more we need the doctors. And so we automatically will see some increases there, Danielle.
Phillip, you've definitely outlined several significant challenges that today's retirees face. You mentioned plenty: increased life expectancy, market volatility, inflation, rising taxes. I mean, the list goes on. So, Phillip, in your experience, what issue do you find most retirees struggling with the most, especially when it comes to planning for their financial security?
Well, let's look at a couple statistics here. On average, men who reach age 65 can expect to live statistically until age 84, while women can expect to live to age 87. Now that's a long time. And I know on my side of the family, I've got some really long genes. And my grandmother was 100. I have a grandfather who lived to 90. My dad right now is 87. So, my family seems to outlive these statistics. So it's really concerning to me that we continue to live longer. Well, if we live longer, that increases the impact of all the other risks that we have, like inflation, taxes, and market volatility, as well as healthcare, because those things are stacked, right? If inflation goes up one year, well, that affects the next year, because usually inflation is going to go up another year. We don't really see deflation bringing prices back down. Same thing for taxes. Taxes go up. Well, now we got to pay a bigger chunk. Well, that takes money out more than we expected. And so now that starts to deplete our money supply even quicker. And so those are some things that we really need to take a look at. And then the one thing I don't think people really think about enough is a surviving spouse. If somebody passes away, a husband passes away, now a surviving spouse can really be hit hard. They lose income and their tax rates go up typically because they're now single instead of married filing jointly. And so that's a big problem that we see with folks in retirement. And then children, they're having to care for aging parents, and that can be a problem within itself. Folks, all these things that we're talking about today, we look at and cover in our core retirement design, where we'll help you design the retirement you always dreamed of. It's simple. We look at market risk. We look at volatility. We look at income planning and make sure that you have an income plan that's going to last as long as you need it to. And then taxes. We want to make sure folks are paying the least amount of taxes possible. And that's all within our core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. It's a 30-minute phone call. You and I will discuss where you are, what path you're on, what maybe you need to do differently. Maybe you're doing everything great. You just need some reassurance. Again, call us at 863-877-1188.
There's no cost or obligation to speak with Phillip and his team. It's simple. There's no cost. There's no obligation. We just encourage you to not plan for retirement alone. Again, call that number 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Phillip, as we continue this conversation about our topic, making your retirement money last as long as you live, what steps can our listeners today take to help ensure that their retirement savings provides the income needed throughout their retirement years?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is we need to create a diversified income stream. We can't rely on one source of income. I mean, we know we're going to have Social Security. A lot of folks now don't have a pension, so they're going to have to create their own pension. And then they've got their investments. And so we need to make sure that we've got a diversified income stream, that we're not just counting on Social Security. We're not just counting on a pension, that we've got that three-legged stool taken care of. And then we need to make sure that we've got sufficient amount of reliable income just to meet our basic expenses. And so we need to make sure we've got that under wraps and ready to go. And then the last thing, we need to make sure we have a written retirement income plan. And we've talked about this a lot on our show. And that's part of our core retirement design. The third leg of that is making sure we have a written retirement income plan where you know where your income is going to come from year in and year out. And it's vitally important that we don't use overarching returns, right? We want to use something that's ultra conservative. Because if that works ultra conservative, we know if markets do better or our income's better, that we'll just be in a better spot down the road. But those are the three things that we really, really need to make sure that we have covered when we head into retirement.
Phillip, a lot of people have questions about this. So with financial security being a top priority, tailored especially to what seems to be indispensable. So can you do something like a personalized retirement income plan for us? So then that way people can kind of have an idea of the overall picture.
So when we put together an income plan, I use a bucket approach, right? We're going to put your money in several buckets, usually 4, sometimes 6 buckets of money, depending upon your current circumstances, because everybody is different. But we want to put those together and make sure that we know where that money is going to come from the first 5 to 7 years you're retired. Where are we getting that money? And then where do we go from there? And at the end, if I live to 100, do I still have some money left? We want to make sure that our growth bucket is keeping up with inflation. It's there to meet emergency things. And so we develop that into our whole system to know, hey, look, here's your retirement income plan. Here's what it looks like. Here's where your money's coming from. And here's what we anticipate that you should have each year. At the end of the time, hey, look, we get down to age 90. Here's how much money you should have left. And maybe at that age, you need more than what we anticipated because of inflation. Hey, now you've got it to work through. And so that's just an area that we have put together in our core retirement design, is that income plan, because it's just so important, Danielle.
And really quick, Phillip, many of our listeners are curious about the timing of retirement planning. So from your professional standpoint, when is the ideal time or age to begin preparing for retirement?
I'm going to say the ideal would be about 5 years before you get ready to retire. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't start a year before or right when you retire. It's the ideal would be 5. But if you've already retired, I'm going to say it's not too late. We can still put together a plan based on your current circumstances and your current portfolios to put together that income plan so that you know where your money is going to come from, month in, month out, year over year. That's important. And again, that's why I developed my core retirement design to help you design that retirement you always dreamed of. And it's a 30-minute phone call where you and I are going to talk candidly about where you are, where you should be, where you need to be, and how are you going to get there. It's 30 minutes, my gift to you. Give me a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll look at market volatility, how much risk do you have in your portfolio. We'll look at the taxes you're paying now, and are there ways and things that we can do to limit your taxes over your retirement lifetime. And lastly, that all-important written retirement income plan, all part of our core retirement design. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
We always like to remind our listeners that there's no cost or obligation to speak with Phillip and his team at Statler Financial Services. It's simple, like he mentioned. There's no cost, no obligation. All you have to simply do is call 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Well, coming up next, we're going to dive into essential strategies to navigate the challenges of inflation, escalating healthcare costs, and taxes in retirement. That's right. We're going to dive into all of that coming up next right here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Surprise parties can be fun.
Surprise!
Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show right here, the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler. He's the founder and president of Statler Financial Services. We're continuing the conversation about making your retirement money last as long as you. Because as we enter retirement and the subsequent stages of life, the financial landscape becomes increasingly complex, marked by, of course, rising inflation, stock market risk, and shifting tax obligations. There's so much. So Phillip is here to walk us through. So Phillip, let's explore how retirees can actually best manage these financial pressures. Let's begin with the challenge of stock market volatility.
Well, and that can be a challenge, right? Because we don't ever know which direction the market's going to go. We can have a couple good days, we can have a couple good weeks, a couple good months, and then all of a sudden things drop off. And so I think it's important that people understand that when we look at things, yes, you need some market exposure. But the problem is how much do you need? And that becomes the $1 million question is what do we need? Because we need to look at your age, how close you are to retirement or how far are you into retirement, and making sure that we use appropriate applications for the investing process. And then we want to make sure that we're looking at the rule of 100. Now, what's that mean? Well, the rule of 100 simply states that, let's say you're 65 years old. It says we should have 65% of our portfolio safe and secure. 35% should be at risk. Now, what does that mean, safe and secure? Well, the definition should be into something where you cannot lose money. Because if we lose money, now we've got to make more to bring it back. So it's a case of making sure that we're in that area where we have some of our money where we cannot lose it. And then we can take risk with some of our other money to help catch up and beat inflation over time. These are two areas that we need to make sure that we're focusing on as we build our retirement plan.
You know, Phillip, another significant concern for retirees is that future tax rates could escalate. You kind of mentioned this earlier in the show, and that really affects a lot of retirees who have based their planning on current tax rates. So, Phillip, how can retirees safeguard their finances against the possibility of rising taxes?
Danielle, rising taxes are a huge possibility. I would say if I was giving it a statistical chance, I'd put it up there about 95% chance that we're going to see increased taxes, if not 99% chance, right? Because of a lot of things. One of them is our growing national debt. It is astronomical how much debt we have taken on in the last 4 or 5 years. And so somebody's got to pay that debt. Somebody's got to service the interest. We've got to make the interest payment. Even if we don't pay the debt down, we got to pay the interest rates. And interest rates have gone up substantially over the last 2 years, 3 years. And so how do we pay it? Well, we got to raise taxes in order to pay that. So then the other thing we look at is we've got expiring tax cut legislation. Again, that would be the Trump tax code cuts, we call them. And that is going to happen at the end of 2025. So December 31st of 2025, our existing tax code reverts back to what it was before, starting January 1st of 2026, which means we are all going to see a tax increase on January 1st of 2026, unless something changes, and I wouldn't hold my breath. So we've got that issue we got to deal with. We need to be able to diversify where we pull our income from. We need to tax diversify our portfolios because most folks, when they retire, the majority of their money is in their 401k, their IRAs, which is all going to be taxable when they pull it out. And that can be a problem because a lot of folks out there have saved and have done a great job. But now, all of a sudden, at 73, you got to start pulling money out whether you want to or not because Uncle Sam wants to collect that tax revenue. So we'll look at things like Roth conversions. How can we maximize your current tax bracket? And it may be minimal things that we're able to do, but every little thing that we can move from a taxable account to a tax-free account is going to save you down the road. And that is part of our core retirement design process to walk you through that and make sure that we take care of taxes and try to get them as low as possible.
You know, there's also the pressure challenge of inflation, Phillip, right? We talked about taxes, but now we're moving on into inflation. So as the cost of living steadily climbs, retirees may find their budgets becoming increasingly tight, causing their savings to deplete more even quickly than anticipated. So I'm curious, how can retirees now adjust their financial plans when it comes to coping with inflation and maintaining their standard of living throughout retirement?
Yeah, that's right. Because a lot of folks that are retired now, let's face it, they put those plans together prior to 2021. And back then, man, we didn't have much inflation. If we had a 2% inflation rate, 2.5%, that was high. And so everybody built their plan based on no inflation, or very little inflation, I should say. And so now we have to revisit that. What do we need to tweak? What do we need to change to make sure that we don't run out of money as the folks need to withdraw more to keep up with this inflation that we're battling right now? And then on top of that, if inflation wasn't enough, inflation when it comes to healthcare costs is even higher than typical inflation. And so that's another issue. And here's one that I think not enough people really pay attention to, and that's making sure you optimize your Social Security. Mm-hmm. Again, too many people, I believe, take Social Security at 62 because they're afraid it's going to run out. It's convenient. They don't really need the money. They just want to take it. Folks, you need to make sure that you're running the analysis to get to the best possible situation you can when it comes to Social Security. Again, that's one of the things we look at in our core retirement design. Give us the call, 863-877-1188, to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll help you make sure that you're on the path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's simple, it's easy, it's a 30-minute phone call. That number to call is 863-877-1188.
That's right, Phillip. And let's also leave our listeners with what guidance could you offer to individuals who are potentially worried about outliving their savings? As we're talking about this whole thing about, outliving your money, how can we also not outlive our savings?
Well, I think it comes down to this, Danielle, is that we have to have a plan. And that plan has to be written so that you can pick it up and look at it and make sure that you are on target, to make sure we're running the way we need to be running. And so that's a big part of our core retirement design, is making sure we have that written retirement income plan where people know where their income is going to come from. We also need to look at how much are they spending, because that's a big deal. Right? If we're overspending, then that's going to really reduce our portfolio, which means we may come up short at the end. I've had to have some difficult conversations with folks that says, hey, look, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to run out of money. And that's difficult sometimes, but that's what we're here for. We're here to help coach people into and through retirement. Again, that's why I developed the core retirement design. That core retirement design looks at 3 key components of retirement. It looks at risk. How much risk are you taking? Because what I have found is about 60% of the folks out there have too much risk in their portfolio when they go into retirement. There's about another 10 to 20% that have not enough risk in their portfolio. And there's another 20% they hit it right. Here's what I will say, though. Don't think you're the one that got it right until you run an analysis to make sure, because that could be a dangerous bombshell if you get it wrong. That's number one. Number 2 is taxes. We want to make sure that folks in retirement are paying the least amount of taxes over their lifetime and hopefully over their beneficiary's lifetime. And so we'll run several analyses to make sure that we put together a plan where they can start taking advantage of their current tax brackets. And lastly is going to be our written retirement income plan, making sure that the income you get meets what you need and that we're still growing our portfolio so there's something left at the end, because we never know how long we're going to live. Give me a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
You do not want to miss this opportunity to speak with Phillip and his team. They will walk you through every step of your retirement plan. There's no cost, there's no obligation. It's simple, it's free, it's complimentary. Take this opportunity, call Phillip and his team at 863-877-1188. You want to find out how you cannot outlive your savings, so simply give that number a call, 863-877-1188. We're just getting started here on the Statler Financial Radio Show. You want to stay with us. We have more coming up right after this. We'll be right back.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Phillip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815.
Surprise parties can be fun. Financial surprises, not so much, especially when you're retired, like finding out you owe more in taxes than you thought you would, or having to go back to work to make ends meet. Maybe you'll be okay, but why not double check just to be sure? Call Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services and schedule a no-cost retirement double check at 863-877-1188. Phillip and his team have seen their fair share of surprises over the years and know how to help you avoid them. Call 863-877-1188 to schedule your no-cost retirement double check with Phillip Statler at Statler Financial Services. Don't let a financial surprise derail your retirement dreams. Call 863-877-1188 now. That's 863-877-1188. You can also visit StatlerFinancial.com for more info. Advisory services are offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin. Retirement is one of life's biggest milestones, but there are a lot of myths out there that can lead to costly mistakes. So today, joining with me is Phillip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services, and he's going to bust some of the most common myths about retirement and help you plan a little savvy. So, Phillip, are you ready to get started here?
Sounds good, Danielle. Let's see. Where can we be and what should we look at first? Let's look at the first myth, and that is you'll spend much less in retirement. Now, folks, that sounds good. It sounds easy, and it's easy to assume that your expenses will drop. But, folks, many retirees actually maintain or even increase their spending, especially in those first few years of retirement. When they travel more, they pursue new hobbies, it's important to plan for the lifestyle you want. So I tell clients, look, don't think you're going to spend less. Let's plan on just spending the same net income, which is a little bit different than gross income, right? Because your net paycheck was less taxes, less Social Security, less 401k, less. So, but if we look at their net paychecks, then that's a good indication of what they will most likely continue to spend even after they retire, Danielle.
Wow, that's really eye-opener there. So let's go to our next myth. What's another myth that people believe?
So another big one is that Medicare will cover all healthcare costs. Now, while Medicare is a great resource, it doesn't cover everything. Things like dental, vision, long-term care are typically out of pocket unless you have a separate plan. So planning for healthcare expenses is key. A couple other things. Now, granted, you see these ads on TV all the time, right? That, this Medicare Advantage plan covers dental or vision or this or that. And that's true. But those don't realize it. But when you do a Medicare Advantage plan, a lot of times you're opting out of Medicare as we know it, and you're going with a separate plan, and then you're paying deductibles or you're paying some other expenses in there that you may not realize. And so a lot of times, by the time you take what you're paying in your Medicare premium, then you end up paying substantially more. And if you don't have a good supplement, then you're paying that 20% that Medicare doesn't pay. So you'll want to make sure that you've got the right plan in place. And some of them aren't cheap. And so we need to make sure that we plan for that and we budgeted for that.
That's right. I know a lot of people have questions about this. So thank you for clearing up the myths. This is why having that financial advisor by your side near you is very important. This is definitely something to think about. Okay, let's move on to the next myth. I believe this is about Social Security.
It is, because a common myth is assuming Social Security alone is going to be enough. Now, Social Security is only designed to replace a portion of your income, not cover everything. Folks, it's a good baseline. It is great to have it, but having other sources of income is crucial. Remember, We've always talked about how the three-legged stool doesn't really exist anymore, and we have to create our own third leg anymore. But the legs of that, if you remember, Social Security was the one leg, and that leg was going to cover anywhere from 25 to maybe 40% of your income that you're going to need. The other leg was a pension, which we don't have pensions much anymore, at least in the private sector. And so you're going to have to create your own pension to make sure that you've got income. And then the last leg is obviously your own savings that you've saved. And so to create that three-legged stool, it takes a little bit more work now, and it takes a little bit more understanding of what your needs are going to be in retirement. And so it is crucial that you have an income plan in place, knowing what your Social Security is going to be, what is your shortfall, and how are we going to make up for it, Danielle?
That's right. This makes a lot of sense. So thank you for clearing this up. And as we're going through these myths, if you have questions about something you want to get a little bit more clarity on, don't hesitate to reach out to Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services. In case you missed that number earlier, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Okay, Phillip, let's keep going. What are some other assumptions that we should avoid?
So some people think that they don't need to save as much if they plan to keep working during retirement. But while working longer is a great idea, it's not something you can always count on. Health issues can arise. Job availability. There may not be jobs out there for you. So those things can change your plans drastically. So you might want to consider to consider saving just what you plan on saving originally. Treat any extra work as an income bonus, allowing you to leave more money invested for down the road. Don't count on it. I know there's folks out there that they need a part-time job just to do something to stay out of their spouse's hair. But don't count on it. We want to make sure that any income we do earn, just consider that a bonus. Let's plan for retirement as if we won't have any part-time employment.
That's a clever safety net. So are there any other myths that we should also cover?
So I think this is a good one. Some people think that all debt should be paid off before retirement. While lowering debt is good, and not all debt is the same. For example, a low-interest mortgage might not need to be, you might not want to rush to pay that off. It's about balancing your cash flow and what works best for you. The biggest thing I see is that folks need to have everything else paid down or paid off. You don't want a huge credit card bill sitting out there or multiple credit card bills, which I've seen disasters. Folks sitting out there heading into retirement with, 3, 4, 5 credit cards maxed out, tried to head into retirement. Folks, that is a cash flow detriment. We don't want that to happen to folks. We want to make sure that we come in as debt-free as possible. Yeah, maybe you have a mortgage because it's a low interest rate. Maybe you've got a small car loan that's going to be paid off in a couple years. But outside of that, that's really where we kind of want to limit that. We don't want much debt heading into retirement because it eats into our cash flow.
These are some good things to keep in mind. Very helpful advice. Okay, Phillip, we have time for one more final myth on your list. And what is that?
So the last one is the belief that legacy planning can wait. Planning for how your wealth will transfer to the next generation is something that should be addressed sooner rather than later. It helps avoid unnecessary stress and helps ensure your wishes are carried out. So many times I sit down with folks and they want to put this part off, how they do things and legacy planning. If we want to leave something to the kids or to the grandkids, we need to decide what that is, how much that's going to be, and then how we're going to fund that. Does that mean we need to have life insurance to provide for that legacy planning? Do we need to do more Roth conversions so that our kids and grandkids don't have to pay tax on the benefits that they're going to receive at our death? And let me throw this in here too, because it's a big deal, is are we planning for not just our kids and our grandkids, but our spouse? And that to me is where Roth conversions can really play a big part. Because when one spouse passes away, Danielle, the other spouse is going to end up typically in a higher tax bracket. They're going to have to pay more taxes. And so by doing Roth conversions, eliminating the tax on their IRA required minimum distributions, we can help that remaining spouse better themselves from a both cash flow and a tax perspective. So that is very important, that we decide how we want to plan for our legacy and what does that look like for our spouse, our kids, and our grandkids, Danielle. It's a big deal. People don't think about it, but they really should.
Phillip, any final words of advice as we close out the show here today?
I would say that my advice is to stay proactive and informed. Folks, retirement is a major step, and it's one that doesn't allow do-overs. So we want to get it right the first time. And the more you prepare, the more you can enjoy it. And remember, we're here to help you plan and make informed choices. Again, that's why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help folks design their ideal retirement. What does it look like for you? What do you want those years to be? Where do you want to go? What's your bucket list look like? How can we help you accomplish those things? That's what the Core Retirement Design does. It measures risk. It makes sure that your risk lines up with where it needs to be. It looks at taxes and works on a way to reduce them as much as possible for you and your family. And lastly, it creates an income plan, giving you peace of mind knowing that your income is going to last as long as you need it to. That's our Core Retirement Design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. Folks, all that is you and me on the phone for 30 minutes, finding out where you are, answering your questions, and making sure that you're on the right path. If you're not, hey, we're going to point things out to you. Hey, maybe you need to fix this. Consider this. And if we can help in any way, we want to be there as a resource to help you have the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, give us a call at 863-877-1188. I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you to make sure you're on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. That number one more time, 863-877-1188.
It's always a great pleasure to be here with you, Phillip, talking about all things retirement. Again, in case you missed that number, 863-877-1188. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you're paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.